Welcome to EnterVR. You are now listening to the podcast about all things virtual reality. I am Chris Miranda, your host, and on today's show I have Neal Nellans, the founder of a company called Ghost Machines at ghostmachines.com, and this company is doing virtual reality gaming experiences. So, Neal, thanks so much for coming on the show, first of all.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's get right to it. What is a ghost machine? And by the way, what are you famous for? Well, I'll go ahead and say it. SuperBike TT.
SuperBike TT. That was our initial Oculus, our first sort of release out into the ethersphere, the interweb for the Oculus headset, virtual reality.
Where did you... Go ahead. Sorry.
SuperBike is a motorcycle simulation racing game that's completely 3D.
And it was made from the ground up for VR? Is that what I'm...
That is correct, yes. So as far as like laying out the menus, getting the control systems, everything was taking into consideration sort of VR player, the VR experience.
And I take it it's still in development, so there's still more features and a lot more kinks that are being worked out as we speak, right?
Absolutely. So one of the main things that we got from demoing was people wanted more response with their weight changing and moving around on the bike. Mm-hmm. That wasn't possible with the current SDKs because it doesn't do positional tracking, but when the Oculus guys update the SDK with the DK2, you'll have that data then to use in the engine.
And so you're already anticipating DK2's performance changes for your game already, right? I mean, you're trying.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
How can you be ahead of the game, so to speak, in terms of anticipating the new changes of DK2? Is there something that you can be doing as we speak right now to prepare for that, or is it all about waiting for that next SDK update?
It's pretty much waiting for the next SDK update. There's not much reason to jump ahead of Oculus releases because anything that is occurring in the Rift in the headset is being passed through their SDK. So it's sort of, you can't put the cart before the horse type of thing.
Yeah, thank you. I understand now. So sticking to SuperBike, where did you get the idea? Did something influence you to create a game about Supercross? It's not Supercross. Superbikes.
Well, I'm a fan of GP racing. Here in Austin, I just went to the MotoGP event they had here, and I really enjoyed that as a spectator sport.
Nice.
I think it's unique. And as far as a racing aspect, just motorcycle racing because they don't refuel, and it's not about pits or strategy as much. It's more about driver skill, And it's sort of old school. I mean, I played motorcycle racing games. I was a big Road Rash fan, growing up, and then I got more into MotoGP and simulation sort of racing. Nice. Tourist Trophy is one. It was really good on the PlayStation. But I didn't see that anyone's doing any motorcycle games anymore. I thought, man, this would be pretty cool, and probably you could whip together fairly easily. So that's sort of the strategy.
I like your thinking. I think about some of my earliest childhood memories. Living with my mom in Nicaragua, I remember she would take us, me and my younger brothers, to see these superbike races. And there were just these Nicaragua would have these random superbike races a few days out of the year, and people would just go see them. And I remember some of my earliest memories just seeing dudes zoom by as they had these rockets strapped between their legs, and I just remember feeling astonished and like, are these people superhuman to be able to go that fast? It's just, it's truly, I think superbike racing is truly a really fun sport to watch. I saw the movie on Netflix called Fastest. I don't know if you recommend that one. but it's a documentary about superbikes, and I'm in there, yeah, and it's just mind blowing, really, the intensity of that sport. It's so crazy. Why do you think in the U.S. Superbikes haven't just taken off like NASCAR?
That's a very good question. I think that it's probably because of the danger aspect. Maybe I think it's more accessible for people because of the low cost, to actually participate. But it's something that most people will never get a chance to do. So it seems like something that's pretty good for virtual reality.
Definitely. In terms of the sport, and sticking to Superbike as a sport for a little bit, how, because I also watch this one, I think I'm an expert because I've been watching Netflix documentaries on motorsports. So I saw the one on Senna, Artur Senna, the Brazilian, Formula One, what was he? He was like a prodigy child for a while.
I mean, he was like 8-time world champion. He was, like before Schumacher, the greatest racer.
So he wasn't human, and watching that his documentary and seeing how he would describe his way of driving the cars, and there was a point in that movie where he started struggling to compete against other teams' machines because their computers were getting a lot better inside the actual cars. And so I'm wondering, I know I took you on a wild tangent, but is Superbike a sport where the machine, no matter how good the human is, as long as you have the best engineers, you're gonna still keep winning? What do you think?
I think that is very likely because most motorsports are like that, but you have to have a consistent driver that goes along with that machine. So I think that it just so happens usually that the best drivers tend to get on the best teams, and then those teams have the best engineers.
Do you think it'd ever be fun to watch, for example, Google versus Ford versus Sony? I don't know why Sony versus BMW. Put together their own self-driving vehicles and see which team of engineers would have the best algorithm to get around the track with the best cars.
Yeah,
do you think that'd be boring to watch if they remove the human from it?
Actually, I think that could be like the next version of the DARPA challenge, where it's just for speed.
Yes,
that would be awesome.
That would be. But no, I think. But I wonder whether people would still go and see car races without humans in them.
That's a very good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Going back to SuperBike TT, I took you on the wild tangent here. What sort of features are you planning on implementing in the future? What can people look forward to in terms of once it's a full game release? If you're allowed to say.
I guess the main thing would be sort of like the unlocked feature set of the game, which would be extended tracks, different locations around the globe that you're racing at, and also unlocking certain bikes that have different performance characteristics. So your menu is in a garage. It's actually a 3D space that you sit inside. And the menu floats in there, and that allows you to select, new machine parts, new parts of the bike, which change the performance dynamics of it. And then once you unlock all the tracks, then you get the golden fleece Superbike.
Whoa, that's awesome! And so, is there going to be leaderboards? Is that going to be something that will be?
Yeah, that's something that will be part of the retail release. Will be a leaderboard which will keep track of your track times and then match your time with other players' times that are online.
Mm-hmm. Have you thought about? I mean, has it ever crossed your mind that maybe this game could also be partnered with arcades? You know how the arcades have those. Motorbike mock-ups where you play in front of a screen. That stuff is antiquated compared to the marvelous alien technology that you're working on. So is that a thought that's crossed your mind before?
I think that's definitely something that will probably come down in the future is motion platform simulators and things like that in arcades. I think that, for a while arcades, receded and home consoles took over where that would be most people's experience in gaming. But I think that if you get into, things that you can't have at home, like motion platforms and simulators, it might go back to the arcades and have sort of, a renewal of arcade culture.
Do you think the Oculus Rift might bring about the second coming of arcades?
I think that could be a big part of it. Yeah.
I think the question is really when it comes to arcades is how long before the technology, the consumer at home technology, catches up to the arcades? Because I think if I'm not mistaken, that's how the first generation of arcades got taken out. It was because people were able to afford these arcade machines inside their houses, and so the question this time around, I think it would be a wise business decision to try to find a way to meld virtual reality with arcades. But the problem is figuring out how much time do you have, to make the most amount of money before everyone has one at home. In my opinion, that's what I'm thinking.
For me, I'm not sure it's so much a race with the technology, because the technology is going to be so affordable that anybody can have the technology anywhere. Smartphones have already proven that with with how they've changed how people communicate. So I think that what the arcades sort of metaphor, the reason that it might sort of become more popular is for the social aspects, rather than for the actual technology.
I actually been thinking about that as an idea, a business idea itself, because we're moving in a direction where everybody is connected to technology some way, somehow, whether it be through video games, through your phone, it's just everywhere. And I think about, how do you give people novelty again? How do you bring back the novelty of, for example, playing in a jungle gym or hanging out playing billiards? So in that sense, I was thinking about putting up an establishment where you could just go play non-digital games. All it would be billiards or air hockey or go have a jump rope place, but it would just be a place where people can just go and play without a screen in front of their faces. I don't know. It just feels like, it would make sense probably 10 years, 20 years from now, where everyone has a screen in front of their face, and all of a sudden it's novel to not do that.
I think that could definitely happen.
Yeah. Are you, what was the thing that got you into virtual reality in the first place? I should have asked this a long time ago, but here we are now.
I've seen different demos of it. I saw the Magic Carpet demo that Disney Imagineering did 15 years ago. That was on a SGI. And then I saw a demo that I think SGI actually manufactured a set of glasses or something. But they were really, they were always these huge devices, that weighed 30 or 40 pounds and had a lot of cabling. It was just not practical, and the frame rates and the polygons, were very basic.
Mm-hmm.
So I always was interested in it, but I never thought that anybody would make it, as close to a cinematic experience that would make it interesting to develop on.
Mm-hmm.
But after seeing, the Oculus stuff and seeing the quality of that, then it was pretty apparent of, what was on the horizon as far as what you could do.
What was your first impression when you tried on the Rift?
I got sick. That was the first thing. I did the Tuscany demo because
Mm-hmm.
I actually saw it at South by Southwest the first year when they came here.
Cool.
And I went through the Tuscany thing, and I got sick going down the stairs. And then I did, it was interesting, but I wasn't super impressed.
Mm-hmm.
The 3D was cool, and I liked the tracking, but I didn't like the movement. I thought that was very arbitrary. So the interface bothered me, immediately.
Yeah, I have to admit I am in the same camp with you. The first few times I had the Rift on, until this day I still get motion sickness from a really how do you say, like really crazy experiences. Like Superbike, I played the whole demo at 40 miles an hour or less. Just to make sure that I had my stomach in the right place. Fun game. I gotta admit, you're putting it feels like it's a labor of love for you. So that's awesome, and I highly encourage that you're that you keep doing these things, because I feel like motorsports isn't a genre that is well represented in the video game industry. I think there's not that many games. And because VR is so new, I figured this would be a blank slate to restart that and rethink what games will and will not be popular in the future. What's your background like? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just thinking that going through environments, like the experiences and the demos that I've tried for the Rift so far, like the ones that I enjoyed the most are ones where you're moving through an environment in some way.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's, especially when it's an open environment, I feel like it has a much different feeling that can't be reproduced very easily.
Yeah, what do you think would be the solution, looking forward into trying to solve this problem?
I don't necessarily see it as a problem. I think it just comes down to good environment design, and it's something that when you're making a game for a two-dimensional area or screen, you're usually just thinking from a single perspective of what needs to be communicated, and I think it's a much greater challenge to design something that communicates in all directions, where you're not necessarily sure where the viewer might be looking.
Right. And so is there a way that the technology can perhaps try to anticipate where the viewer might be looking? Is that what again, I might be murdering it, but I think that's what Time Warp is, that John Carmack is working on. I probably isn't, but is there a way for the computer to anticipate where you're looking to make the experience better, or?
Currently, the best way to do it is just to have all the elements represented in 3D space. So having software that is placing the geometry in 3D space is the most accurate way. But if you want to actually record real space, then it gets more complicated.
Are you using Unity 3D by any chance?
Yeah, we use Unity, and we're using Unreal for our new developments.
Nice. Oh, so did you make the switch to Unreal after the $20 subscription thing?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, their Epic is pretty smart by making that move. I still don't know what Unity is going to do in response to that. Have you heard of any of that?
I haven't, no.
Yeah, neither have I. I wonder. Yeah, it's still up in the air to see what Unity is going to do to respond. Because I honestly think at $20, yeah, it's a really good deal. So, what's your background? I want to know where do you come from, my friend?
I went to school at the Ringling School of Art and Design for computer animation. Nice. And for my thesis that I worked with 4 other guys that we made, I won an Academy Award for animation.
Congratulations.
And from that, I was offered a job at DreamWorks was starting a new gaming division that turned out to be DreamWorks Interactive, and they developed the Medal of Honor series. So I was an environment artist on the first 3 Medal of Honors for the PlayStation and PlayStation 2.
Wow. Wow.
Then, I founded a mobile company called Tiny Utopia in 2008. And then I just started this new development called Ghost Machine.
Very cool. Wow, that's quite the resume, my friend. That's really cool. Well, what if I got in a time machine and I asked 10-year-old Neal, what do you want to be when you grow up? What would he say?
Filmmaker. I was always had grown up wanting to be a director and make movies.
Yeah, and so winding up doing work for DreamWorks and then doing level design on Medal of Honor, did that somehow fulfill or help you fulfill that dream that you had?
Yeah, I mean that I finally got to see, firsthand how those productions developed, how all those things ran, and I really enjoyed my time there and have friends that I still keep in touch with today.
Nice. That's awesome. That's really cool. What did you, and how many dogs do you have?
I have 20.
Holy moly. Because, yeah, I can hear one of them. What's his name?
Homer. Homer is the beagle, and he actually has his very own mobile game. It's called Homer's Adventure Spectacular. It is quite the epic.
That is quite epic. I gotta say, I did not. So, what does Homer do in his epic adventure?
He shoots fire out of his ass, and he shoots lasers that shoot his 3 mortal enemies, who are cockroaches, horses, and cats. So it's a shoot 'em up for the hardcore crowd.
Is this for real, dude? Is it available on Google Play? Can I download it right now if I wanted to?
Yeah, it's on Google Play and it's on iTunes as well.
It's called Homer's Adventure.
Homer's Adventure Spectacular.
Is he trying to save someone, or he's just going on a rampage of?
Well, he's trying to save the other dog, but I never got around to putting the other dog in the game. So he just develops stronger and stronger superpowers, but that's basically the only thing that happens in the game. There's not really like an end scene.
So in real life, he really does hate horses and cockroaches, huh?
I'm not sure about cockroaches. He probably just eats them, but horses are his mortal enemy. Yes, he's very fearful of horses.
What happened?
Something about their size.
Oh, did he have a bad experience or something? Was that?
I don't know. My wife got him at the pound, so he's a rescue dog, and he probably had some horrible experience where he was, butt raped by a bunch of horses or something.
Poor guy, poor Homer. And then is there a story behind cats? Do you guys have a cat that he hates also, or?
No, it's just something I thought I could throw in a neon cat, and it would be cool.
That's hilarious. I'm going to download that game immediately after this call, because he shoots lasers out of his butt. No, rainbows out of his butt. What is it that he shoots out of his butt?
He shoots fire out of his butt, and he shoots laser out of his mouth. So he's like flying forward through space.
Oh man, that's amazing. Speaking of animals, for just staying on the subject of animals for a second, do you think it'd be an I know this is gonna be a sick idea, but do you think it'd be we could get some form of value from putting virtual reality headsets to monkeys or dogs and trying to trick their brain? Do you think we would figure out more about the brains of other animals if we started experimenting with VR, or is that a crazy road we shouldn't go on?
I would think that there's probably something that could be discovered. I don't know what it would be, but there's I think that using monkeys for testing, is usually the way to go. Yeah.
Because we put lipstick on them. We we try experimental medicines on them. I guess it's we human beings, we're such evil fucks. We're just plucking animals out of nature and just doing experiments with them. But yeah, I wonder if we would get scientific value from that data, being able to.
I just don't know if they would want to do it or if they would throw it down like like a piece of technological witchcraft.
Yeah, it would have to be. You're right. It would have to be witchcraft, because it would have to be to the point where you just put sunglasses over the monkey and the monkey's like, "What? I'm still."
Well, maybe they would like it. Maybe if you put a really attractive monkey in the game, then the monkey would be like, "Yeah, I'm into this, virtual reality."
You know what I saw? Actually, now that we're in the rabbit hole, let's go a little deeper, because what if we could, how zoos have lions and zebras and hippos and rhinos constrained in a small space? I mean, that's a fact. So these another thing that's factual, I think, is a lot of these animals suffer from depression. I've seen some of the saddest things in my life that I've seen have been child beggars and elephants at a zoo, because they just look like they want to be free, like they want to roam and shit, and they can't. But I wonder if you could use a virtual reality headset to trick them to walk in circles or to walk in a certain pattern, and so that what they would see through the headset would be open savanna. But what they would be actually doing is they'd be walking on a treadmill, or they'd be walking in a certain pattern to trick their brains. I saw Sebastian Kuntz from I'm in VR. He was using experiments on people in France, where they actually made you go through a hallway, and they would have a VR headset over your head, and they would trick you to think that you were walking in an infinite hallway or something, but you were actually going in circles. So
that sounds like the weirdest zoo I've ever heard of.
Yeah, you're just walking into a zoo and you have animals with headsets strapped to their faces.
Going down an infinite hallway.
Yeah.
I would not want to be the developer tasked with that.
But I mean, it would be a little bit more humane than having them just looking at us and having us. I don't know. Who knows?
No, I guess. Or we can make just a whole virtual zoo and then put the animals back in the rainforest. You
know what? We should keep the headsets to the humans. I agree. Let's do that instead. Yeah. But so
I was before we got on this call, I was playing this game that I was wondering if you had checked out. It's called Ethereon.
Ethereon, I am writing it down and checking it out as soon as I can, because
the website is YANTRAVR. I'm not even sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. .com.
What's it about?
It looks like an adventure, but it's a guy that had worked on Ribbon, which I thought had really beautiful graphics, and I was impressed by it. I thought it was pretty entertaining.
Well, I'm gonna have to check it out. That sounds awesome. What
found it today.
What are your favorite Rift demos that you've tried out so far?
That one's pretty good. That's probably one of the better ones. Another one that I played that I thought was not half bad was called what was it called? It was called Logistics, the game.
Ah, yes.
Where you basically just look down into a pile of boxes, and then you look up towards a truck, a delivery truck, and you just chuck the boxes into the back of the truck.
Yeah, I remember playing that one a while ago. But I think it was one of the first games on the Oculus Share store.
I'm behind. I'm catching up on all the demos and stuff, trying to see what people are doing.
Right now, Rift and Neal has more than 488 demos. That's
amazing.
Yeah, it is. That's a crazy list. I mean, you'd wonder. I mean, where are all these people who bought a Rift? What are they doing with it? I mean, I wonder if that's a good number, because 70,000 people bought the DK1 total. I think maybe I'm pulling that number out of my butt, but
that sounds right.
But even if 70, between 50 and 70, and you get 488 demos, I wonder if that's a success for Oculus. If they're looking at the number and thinking to themselves, yeah, this isn't bad, or maybe they were expecting more demos. I don't know. What do you think?
It seems like a pretty good number to me. I mean, that's like almost 1% of all the people that own a developer kit made a demo and put it online, not to mention the people that never put anything online.
Yeah. I'm working on something. I just don't know if it'll ever see the light of day. But go ahead, sorry.
No, I think that's a pretty substantial number.
Yeah.
I think that one thing, though, is that what, are the experiences that people are doing? Like what different, because I've seen some interesting stuff where they're doing, limb, ghost limb, stuff for amputees and things like that, and really interesting usage. The 3D, like the 360-degree 3D video stuff, like there's a couple of guys that are doing different stuff with that, and to me that is as interesting as all of the other stuff.
Yeah, no, it's truly. I mean, right now it's definitely, I would say, the horror game / space shooter reigns supreme in terms of a theme that I keep seeing, and I think it's because of the DK1's inability to produce high fidelity graphics. I think these scenes where everything is dark, I think is a lot more. It's a lot better to be in those with the current Rift, but. Yeah, I'm truly excited because what you're talking about 360 cameras. Is there going to be? I mean, I wonder what do you think will be the impact to filmmaking once these cameras become available and people are taking advantage of them with a Rift?
I feel like it'll always be a unique experience. I feel like it won't take over traditional filmmaking because it's too present. It's too immersive. And since the movement throws people off, you're sort of limited to exactly the narrative, capabilities with it. If you're sort of just sitting in one space, it becomes more of like a theatrical production than traditional filmmaking.
I've never thought of it that way. Can you explain more in terms of theatrical versus filmmaking?
The experience will be more tantamount to going to a theater and sitting in the theater and having the theater around you, rather than you being in a film and projecting in a theater your personality or your emotions onto the film, onto the story.
Are you planning on jumping in that game? Have you thought about doing 360 video content?
We'll definitely do something like that when the technology, becomes apparent. But right now, there's nothing to get that experience across. There's people who've done different sorts of cheats for it, but the spatial recording, recording a volume of space in real time can't be achieved right now. So. That'll be, for me, that's the point where it would become interesting on a storytelling basis.
Oh. And then would it be, do you think it's going to be a big company moving in and taking over, leading the charge, or is it more of what's happening now, all these indie companies surfacing to trying to...
I imagine it would probably more likely be a startup, just because... The technology doesn't exist currently, and as far as I know, there aren't very many companies working on that. I think Steam or Valve might be working on 3D recording technology, but they haven't announced anything.
Yeah. Tell me more about Ghost Machine. What do you? Where did it all come from? What are you working on? What's the mission of this company that you're putting together?
We just want to put out different sorts of simulation experiences. So SuperBike was the first, sort of testing of that market and seeing how people responded to, to very high impact, adrenaline, filled experiences like that rather than passive sort of puzzle solving, sit in a in a field or whatever. And I think that there's a lot of people who want to, have VR games like that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And so are you aiming more for the casual consumer or more the hardcore? I mean, what is where's your target?
It's definitely more the core high-end PC gamer. So, I mean, our games with the simulations and stuff going on probably can't be even run on mobile devices or any sort of low-end consoles. Mm-hmm. So, we're thinking of more developing content for machines that are improving performance and, that are able to drive 2 3D views of all the simulation stuff.
What's your take on mobile VR? Is that something that we will see at all become mainstream, or is this going to be more of a niche sort of place for VR enthusiasts?
I think that's probably where things are going, and it's even Palmer Luckey, the founder of Oculus, has said that he imagines once the speed of smartphones and mobile technologies improves sufficiently to drive the headset, then why would not people be using those with mobile devices?
I just find the interface to be quite interesting, how that would even look like. This is years in the future, speaking, but it's just, how will you be inside playing? How will you be inside your VR experience with your mobile phone, for example, your mobile VR thing? And then, it's an interesting thing to think about. But then again, yeah.
I imagine it would probably be like Minority Report. Where there's just sort of floating menus in front of you, and then your gestures can manipulate the placement, and size of the windows.
Yeah.
I think that's probably, that's something that I've just seen started to develop for the Oculus too, where people are, building OSs for their desktop in it, which, that'll be somebody will do a good job of that and they'll make a lot of money. Because that's something that Oculus doesn't have any interest apparently in doing.
And I think there's going to be a demand for it eventually.
There's a demand for it now because when I'm testing games, I'm having to use the desktop and then hold the glasses and stuff all day. I would much rather be able to switch demos and everything just inside the Oculus.
That would be amazing. It would be, truly.
Somebody will do that pretty soon. Before the Oculus goes retail, somebody will probably have a good working prototype.
Yeah, because that's another hurdle to jump, the whole figuring out productivity and the interface of productivity inside of virtual reality. How do you, how do you put together an Excel spreadsheet? Will it be like what you said, interfaced over my living room, over my room, and then I'm just manipulating the numbers with a trackpad, or I don't know.
I mean, for the interim, it's probably going to be mostly icon driven and a visual system, just because the resolution isn't deep enough to do textual content, but. That'll come as the technology improves. Yeah.
It would be interesting to see what sorts of technology that would even incorporate. Would it be like a front-facing camera? Or would it be like a projector, sort of light projector? I don't know. That's, it's definitely something fun to think about. What do you think? Do you think Oculus would ever come up with a Rift with a front-facing stereo camera? I wonder if they could, if developers could benefit from something like that.
Well, as far as I understand, the DK2 actually has a USB port on the Oculus now for any types of hardware mounting. So you could do like the Go Motion and the cameras or anything like that for augmented reality. So they're definitely thinking about that.
That would be amazing. I think you're right in terms of putting a USB on the headset, because then you could hack it and modify it so that you can have two cameras facing forward. And
because that's there was a company, I can't remember who they were, but they were at E3 or they were at GDC showing off this device. I think it was like $600. And basically, it was a pair of plastic goggles that you put your cell phone into for the screen, and then it had a camera and it would do augmented reality and stuff. And it just seemed like a really hacked together, prototype. But there's no reason you couldn't do something 10 times better with the Oculus. Using a 3D camera mounted, and then do an augmented reality game, where you're doing whatever in the actual space that you're in. But
yeah, are you that company, by the way, is Sulon. I think they're selling the Sulon Cortex. They're from I think they're from Toronto, and they're nice people. I was in line to try out their prototype, and I got into a debate between this artist type of guy and this computer science dude, and we were all three of us having this debate over whether cryptocurrency / Bitcoin are the future. And we were just having these weird, we ended up talking about how 9/11 was a conspiracy, and that's when I was like, all right, guys, this is gonna get crazy here. But it was interesting. I went inside the booth and I was about to try it out, and there was a malfunction. So I am going to hit them up because I really want to try it out now that you've piqued my interest.
Well, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. They're cool. What is your so what's your opinion on the whole, because you did Kickstarter, and I wonder if, because the whole Facebook thing, I wonder if that is affecting at all people's Kickstarter numbers. You know what I'm saying? Like, the people who funded some of the most, how do you say, the most angriest people at Oculus when the whole Facebook thing went down were the Kickstarter backers. And I wonder if the same set of people are sort of feel, hesitant to fund any more VR projects because now that Oculus has all this money, they could just acquire your studio, and all of a sudden, where the money go? Is that? Do you think is that a mentality that's circling around, or am I just thinking too much about it?
I'm sure that that's part of it. I'm sure that a lot of people feel burned by that. By that takeover, but it's that's just how Oculus felt that they could get the best devices for the lowest cost in consumers' hands, and ultimately, I don't see why everybody wouldn't want that, because it'll mean more content and it'll mean more developers that will use their hardware.
No, it's definitely a big deal and definitely a big push forward for the industry. But
I agree with you. I think that there was for Kickstarter projects. I don't know if we were caught in that or not, but there was definitely people that felt like they didn't want to be part of Oculus or be part of VR projects, especially on Kickstarter. So, but Kickstarter's hard regardless. It takes a lot of marketing. It takes a lot of PR. And sometimes good projects don't get through, but that's just how the system works.
No, it's definitely a tough one. Kickstarter is definitely, and I also had some experience trying to raise money on Kickstarter a while ago, and yeah, it didn't go through, and it was a great learning experience. But Kickstarter is something that requires a lot of effort, a lot of time to put into it, and even if you have the greatest idea, it's still super hard. What's so right now? What is your plans going forward in terms of SuperBike TT? Are you going to keep at it with crowdsourcing, or is this, or are you venture capitalisting it? What's your plan?
We're bootstrapping it because we've got enough resources in-house to finish the thing. So sort of on the heels of the SuperBike project, we started developing a car racing project for Oculus. Nice. So we haven't released anything from this. We haven't released a playable demo. We're still working on that, but that'll be the next project for us.
If there was any way that I could perhaps just throw this idea at you. If it could at all ever be possible, please include turtle shells. The ability to throw turtle shells at my opponent's car. Sorry, that's a whole nother series. But I'm super.
We'll talk offline.
Okay. No, I'm super excited about that. I think racing simulators are going to be a huge thing in the Rift. And even driver's ed. I think when I was learning to drive, I had to hire this guy for what was it $$75 an hour. I paid that guy $75 an hour so he could teach me for 3 hours how to drive. Is there, do you know of anyone, or has it crossed your mind that perhaps we could use VR to teach or create a service that will teach kids how to drive, teenagers how to drive, or is that waddling into?
That absolutely would be a great game to make. There's already a parking simulator on the Oculus Share site that I think it's a Japanese guy made it, and it's actually really good. Like it feels like you're inside this crappy Buick Skylark. Yeah.
But I wonder if you could somehow partner up with the DMV or the Department of Motor Vehicles in your state or something, and cut a deal with them. Like, hey, we'll create a VR simulation based on your guidelines, and
you probably could. I don't know if I trusted driving that only been on VR though. I want someone to actually get real world training.
Yeah. Dude, that's an interesting point you bring up, because don't fighter jet pilots have to go? Well, I don't know anything, but I wonder if they feel confident using VR simulations and then getting inside of the real thing. I wonder if it's I wonder how that would work. If VR could replace instructors that way for driving, yeah, because that would be weird. But even before that happened, I think self-driving cars are just going to be around, and kids won't even see that happen that well. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's just as likely.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities now. God, I'm not even going to try to predict the future. There's no point. It's so futile. What is your ideas in terms of your vision for virtual reality? What do you think it's, in the grand scheme of things, what do you think it's gonna this technology will become?
It basically will be just another communication medium, I think, in the end. The point where, the games are really interesting because they take on a new dimension, and you have a new relationship with the 3D space, but the games aren't really that much different. What I think will be really interesting is when you can transmit live signals from cameras or drones or whatever, that you can experience. And there's been a lot of talk of virtual tourism, and I think that could be something that will get very popular.
Yeah, I definitely see that. I just like you, I think it's going to be huge when people can watch sporting events live from the pitch or the starting line, or from multiple angles, or put a 360 camera on top of the International Space Station, and everybody can plug in to see how what the world looks like from that vantage point at any given time. That would be crazy.
The one thing that hasn't really changed, even with this medium though, is that you're still just a voyeur. You're not, even if you feel 100% like you're in the virtual space, you're still just observing it through a viewport. So that's something that, with communication, I don't know exactly what that will take on, because no one is going to want to talk to somebody with a giant black mask on their face, so I think that there'll be new technologies that will have to sort of fill the gaps of making it a true communication medium.
Yeah, that is definitely a hurdle to cross or jump or whatever we need to do, because I think that it's super weird to speak to faces inside of VR, and those faces don't move, and it's just sort of static. I know you're a real person behind that face, but it's still weird to not see that face, those lips move as you speak. But
I mean, a sort of a potential fix would be 3D laser scanning. So everyone who is communicating on it with your account or whatever would scan your face, and then that would be put over your avatar, based on your phononyms.
yeah, thinking about putting your real face on a VR or 3D avatar that can inhabit the metaverse makes me think a lot about the legal questions of what that might mean, because I don't know, you're putting your identity, your face to something, and that's or someone's face to something, and I think that can get complicated sometime in the future.
Yeah, especially if people, you can choose any avatar, so you could steal identities, in the metaverse.
Yeah, that's where VR and virtual reality and the law will collide, perhaps, where people are stealing people's identities, people's faces, and then are out committing VR crimes or something.
I always watched the Ghost in the Shell. That was part of the inspiration for my new company's name, and I was always very interested in cyber espionage and the future of what identity will be. Yeah.
And then you pay attention to what's happening today, and that whole Ghost in the Shell feels like it's just they were thinking ahead of their time. That series, I remember watching it when I was too young to understand it, and I was just still blown away by the visuals, and yeah, I had a crush on the lieutenant, but but it was such a good series. I'm gonna have to rewatch it, man, because they probably hit on some points that are still relevant till this day. Or because the whole NSA and the whole, like, I know this is old news, but for me it feels like Reddit used to be this bastion of pure thought and but I don't know. And the more I've been in it, the more I realize that there's a lot of paid kooks in there and paid shills from Russian government or American government. I don't know. I don't know who to believe sometimes on Reddit. Maybe I should spend less time on the internet. But
well, that's what you always get in a public forum is the loudest speakers.
Yeah. How do you not to get too off on a tangent. I mean, this is what we do on the show anyway. But how do you know who to believe on the internet? Do you just everyone take for a grain of salt, or are you did you figure out a filtering system?
No, to me it's all the same.
Yeah.
The same amount of noise. I listen to people that I know personally.
Yeah.
And talk with. Those are the conversations that I've paid attention to. The internet's good for news, for keeping up on topical stuff or work-related stuff, but socially, I don't really use the internet for that.
Yeah. Even the news, I figured it's so hard figuring out what is propaganda, what isn't anymore. I don't know if you knew about this law that that just went expired. It was this anti-propaganda law that expired like a year or two ago, and I don't know. You feel we know Russia Today, for example, is pure Russian propaganda. And we know Fox News is a big, giant joke. And CNN is a big, giant joke. And their propaganda. So who's left? Who do you believe in terms of where do you get your truth from about what's happening in the world? I have no clue. I have a hard time figuring out who to believe in the news in terms of journalists nowadays.
Well, it seems like the thing now is it comes from anywhere. You don't necessarily know. It can come from a Snowden. It can come from a guy in Yugoslavia. That's uploading something. You don't really know exactly where it's coming from. It's just sort of what gets the exposure is what you end up being exposed to.
And that's a weird thing about the internet. I feel like it's harder to filter out what the truth now that we have this open channel to tell it. It's harder to figure out and decipher who's telling the truth amongst the loudness of all the different voices that are trying to speak up and speak out there. Yeah, it's a weird organism to think about. because I think the internet is weirdly, in a sense, I think the internet is an organism. I think it's just evolving and growing and mutating and maturing. It's a weird thing to think about. Where is VR the future of the internet, in your opinion, or is this just a segment, a tangent, maybe a fad, or no?
I think that it's just another extension of the types of information that's being transmitted through the internet. But I don't know if it's intrinsically different from what is already there. It just allows people to experience things in maybe a more direct way than previously. I just think of it as sort of like an IMAX that you wrap around your head. It doesn't change anything necessarily, but it just is more impressive for experience.
Yeah. I would say I would go a little further into saying that it feels it's not just because with movies and the regular with the old paradigm is watching screens from a distance is good experiences. You feel it, you feel them somehow in your emotions and whatever part of your brain. But bad experiences, it's still, I don't know, like, so what I'm saying is, in the Rift, I feel like there's more, your emotional part of your brain gets activated a lot more easier when you're surrounded by that world. It's just weird. I don't know. I do agree though. It's definitely a whole new medium of communication for sure.
Yeah, I understand what you mean though.
Yeah. Because I think about how this will affect the layman or the people who aren't in it, in the bubble that we're in. I wonder how they will react. I mean, it's anyone's guess, but will they like it? Will they turn against it? Will they find it creepy? I don't know. I wonder what, when this thing gets released out into the real world as a consumer device, I wonder how it'll get received. What's your opinion?
I think it'll be received well, but it comes down to the experiences too. I mean, everybody's different, the type of thing that they want to do and be involved in. So as long as there's a system that allows, the type of content that they want to see fit, I think that it'll get more widely used. But that's why I think that Facebook's probably a good thing, because it gives some more, brains that aren't just thinking about video games 24/7, and maybe there's more engaging ways to communicate things with it than just games.
Going back to Ghost in the Shell, did you follow the series very much? I mean, did you follow it pretty well? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I watched all those and the spin-offs and the 2 features from it. I mean, there was a lot of stuff for that. I mean, you put out a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what I wonder how Ghost in the Shell will, if reality will mimic art, or whether it's the other way around. Kind of like a chicken and egg kind of question. I wonder if that's what's happening in today's world. Is reality mimicking the art of Orwell and other science fiction writers that were talking about, this NSA fuckery, or is it the other way around? Is it just I don't know.
It could be both.
Yeah, because it could be. Yeah, it's easily. What's your favorite video game of all time?
Look at that stuff, so that wouldn't be so bad. If everything looked like Ghost in the Shell, I think that'd be pretty badass. Yeah,
definitely. What's your favorite video game of all time? I forgot to ask earlier.
Probably the original Half-Life was probably my favorite video game of all time.
Wow, that's a solid classic. What made you? What is it about that game that you liked so much?
That was the first time I actually got into heavy PC multiplayer, on faster connections. It really performed. Everything about the engineering of that game was just exquisite. And it made the multiplayer aspect of it even better than the single player. And I got like super into the multiplayer, stuff. I thought that was great.
How many hours did you put into the multiplayer?
Hundreds, probably 200 or 300 hours, maybe.
Did you get into Counter-Strike also, or was it just that?
No, I never got into Counter-Strike. It was too, I got bored. If I got shot, I just sit around. That sucks. I want to kill someone.
Yeah.
So I never got into Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I dabbled into, when I played Half-Life, the first Half-Life when I was way too young. I remember getting scared, and then I skipped Half-Life 1. I know, blasphemy. But I have it on Steam. I have the game. I should play it. I should just, man.
Today it would probably be so primitive. It looked like Minecraft. It would be like a shooter.
Has Valve updated the graphics on them, or are they keeping it classic?
Maybe they have updated them. I know that they did some sort of when they did the Source engine or whatever, they had some extended thing that was you went into a church and then you walked around, and I think that was before Half-Life 2, but I don't know if they probably have redone the original Half-Life. I should look at that.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back and see if I can play it again. I was just really waiting for VR to be here already, and I was really holding up actually to replay all these games of my childhood again. But it's hard, man. Half-Life 2, 2 hours into the game, and I don't know if I can go any further. It's just it makes my stomach too queasy. It's a tough one.
Yeah, that's the thing when you play those first-person shooters. Sometimes they're like that. Yeah,
it gets too crazy for my brain. And it's just I feel like it is a matter of time though. I mean, the more you do it, your brain would just plasticity, you would just get adapted to it. How does Valve, and the Steam machines affect VR and the current landscape? Do you think that it will have an impact at all? I don't know if Valve ever released any form of support with official support for a Steam machine and Oculus, but I wonder if Valve will have a dent, if at all, in the VR industry.
I'm not sure. I mean, it looks like Oculus poached a couple of their guys that were the most interested in it, and I can't imagine that Valve has a massive team of researchers working on virtual reality development. But maybe they are. I think that regardless, the Steam box, once that comes out, will probably be a pretty good fit for the Oculus in the home. So if they time that with the Oculus release, I would imagine pretty good sell-through on their boxes.
Yeah. Do you think the gaming market is saturated, mature, or are we about to see a revolution of new content because of VR?
Oh, there'll be lots more content. It's nascent now. I mean, it's in the early seedling stages, not even the beginning. The video game industry, going back to if you had a choice between the best console game that could come out, costs like $300 million to make, and the best VR game that costs $300 million to make, which one would you rather play?
VR. Easy.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want the most kick-ass simulation game, in VR? And who will ever play a console game, There'll be those people that like retro games, like Mario Brothers and stuff, but I think for like a full entertainment, if it's going to be a 3D game, you'll want to have it in VR. Yeah,
that's for sure. And speaking of that number, the 300, because it's not unheard of. It's not unheard of to think about a particular game, Grand Theft Auto, that cost $300 million to make. But does that worry you as an indie developer, that the fact that these giant publishers, these giant monsters are out there lurking? Still, I don't know if they're oblivious to Oculus's presence, but I don't know. But I think they're hesitant. They're still waiting to jump in the water with you. But once they do, I think it's a matter of time before they do jump in the water and start creating $100 million or $50 million VR experiences. Does that how are you anticipating that particular possibility, if at all?
Well, I mean, the thing is, organizations like that are very slow moving, so they will have one product out in 2 years, and in the same amount of time, I could have, potentially 4 or 5 different games out. So I would rather do different types of experiences. That's how I just like to develop. I don't really... I came from that background of spending 2 years developing one IP, and it gets boring, quite frankly. I'm not, I would rather do multiple different games. And with the Oculus, the thing is, it sort of cuts through all the fat. There's no more cinematics. There's no more of all the fluff that makes these huge budgets. What people just want is a great gameplay experience and, potentially, eye-opening graphics. So it's now, you got Unreal. People for, $18 can have that engine and build experiences the same as this $300 million game. So I think that there's going to be a leveling playing field, and VR is really going to usher that in.
That is a fascinating point you bring up in terms of the fluff of developing video game content. So
I mean, there's going to be people that always want that type of thing and want like the 200 different guns, and whatever extra add-on type stuff. But I think ultimately, you just want something that's rewarding for the type of experience that you're looking for. So with VR, there's so many different things you can do. It's hard to imagine that big studios are going to cover everything.
Yeah. And it's so, that's a really good point you bring up in terms of, I mean, I'm still stuck on that, thinking about how VR, cinematics don't look good or don't feel like they belong in a VR experience. I mean, at this point in time, I can't think of a cinematic that pulled me away from my face, put a screen in front of me, and made me watch it without, at a static point. I wonder, I haven't found something that actually feels satisfying. And so, for that matter, that's true. I feel like we are witnessing the democratization of content creation somehow, the slow democratization of content creation, but it's happening. And it's fucking awesome.
The main hurdle, though, just to go back to your original question, for indies, though, will be the fact that you have to do 3D well to make a good Rift experience. And so that is, a bit of a learning curve for people that maybe be coming from a traditional games or 2D games background and are trying to make the leap into VR. So there's going to be definitely some new inventions, but ultimately good 3D skills are what is going to make the experience more interesting.
What are some, principles of just some general principles of having good 3D skills that perhaps you can share with the audience?
Just understanding design space. So, like you had another article on your blog about some guys doing architecture stuff, which I think is great. And that's something that even in games is going to become more important, where the space that you're in, I see like some of these demos and I'm just in this shoebox, with a couple of neon painted signs on the walls. It's like I walked into some weird porno theater or something, and that's not going to hack, that's not going to hack it once people start really building out some amazing VR, content. It's going to take some 3D skills to make the space interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And so there's definitely having an eye towards that particular detail of that, of making sure that the user feels like they belong in that space. It's not like a shoebox. Is there anything
one thing too that Oculus talked about a lot at GDC was latency and keeping the frame rates up as well. So that's something that has been a challenge on mobile. So people coming from that area might be more familiar with optimizations, but sometimes things you could do in traditional PC games are more difficult to do in Oculus simulations.
Yeah. No, that's definitely hi. Yeah, that's definitely for sure. What are your thoughts in PC versus Sony in the VR competitiveness of the industry? Is this going to divide indie developers? Is this going to hurt the industry as a whole eventually, or is it a good thing that we're seeing this competition because Sony's
I
in
think that it's good that there's other devices that are trying to achieve the same result. I think that ultimately, the market will choose what device fits, the need. So they can only help. And obviously, Sony, does games. So from a game developer standpoint, it's good because I have potentially another client to license to.
Yeah. So, but having them have a different set of tools or a different, is that an obstacle that doesn't bother you to think about, or is it just part of the business?
I think that people that own a PlayStation, they will probably prefer to have the Sony headset. And I think people that are, in a PC or Mac area and are more comfortable gaming in those areas will probably lean towards Oculus.
Yeah, if I can have my cake and eat it, I'd have both. I really would. I wouldn't mind just owning a CV1 and a project.
Oculus is talking now about a $200 price point for the consumer version. So, at that prices, how could you not, have your cake and eat it too? Seems pretty good.
Yeah, no, my mouth is watering. It's that price sounds quite delicious. And I can't wait to have my cake because at this point it just seems inevitable that Oculus will have a pretty good price point. Considering
they've gone on record as saying that they'll sell them at cost. So basically, whatever you end up paying will be what it costs to make that thing. So,
Where does it get expensive for the VR user, especially the new adopters, especially the new adopters? Where will it get expensive? Will it get expensive with the input devices? Will it get expensive with the games? I don't know if VR games will be more expensive than.
Yeah, probably the input devices will be the first major expense. I haven't used too many of those things, so I don't know if they're worth the price of admission or not, but for me, I just prefer using the Xbox controller, the 360 controller, and just mapping to that control scheme seems like you can do the widest range of experiences. I don't have a lot of desk space. I don't want, 20 different motion capture, whatchamajigs. I'd rather just have one thing that I can basically run all the games with. So.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is the?
Yeah, I think what that could be interesting though is motion sensing, like wristbands. So that you can do some gesture recognition stuff on your keyboard.
That would be cool. That would be
in the VR if you could have the keyboard projected,
mm-hmm.
and then it just somehow it just matches up through AR the keys, so you don't have to pull off the headset.
That would be really cool. I that brings to mind the Thalmic Lab. I forgot the name of the thing. It's this armband that you wear over your forearm, and it is able to track the muscle movements of 3 of your fingers. So if you do the Spider-Man whatever move, it potentially theoretically you could shoot spider webs through it in a simulation. So I think about your bracelet or wristband of whatnot, and I think about perhaps figuring out a way sometime in the long-term future how to map out your fingertip movements. But that's
I don't know that it's really that far out there because a lot of companies are just working on wearable computing stuff. In Austin, there's 1 or 2 of them. So it's just basically using that to input into the engine. So I think that's there's these guys, VO. I think their name is VO AR or something.
Mm-hmm.
They were at the South by Southwest convention, and they were doing like it's a vest that you strap on, and then it does motion capture, real time motion capture in the VR space.
Yeah,
which is cool. But I would rather just have like, ankle straps and wrist straps, and then I just turn on the game, and I'm already doing my motion capture. Like, I don't want a big, tether and a lot of, magnets and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It has to be completely. I can forget about it. It's transparent to me as a user. That's when I would buy that.
Yeah,
Right now, it's too arbitrary. There's too many things, There's too many drivers. There's too many cables. There's too many add-ons. It's too complicated. The consumer will never adopt something like that.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I think price points are king for the average consumer.
Right. So, I mean, that's the only thing is the keyboard is not a great device for VR. Like, honestly, the mouse and the keyboard is like the last thing that I'd want to use. So, I understand why people are talking about that, but they need to keep working.
I agree. I have a Bluetooth I have this Durovis Dive, this smartphone VR headset adapter thingamajig. It's a great device. I can play all these Google Play, Android VR games, and the problem with my phone in particular is I'm too lazy to root it or / too scared because I'm afraid I'm gonna brick it. But essentially, when I play the VR games on Android, I have to use this Bluetooth keyboard, and just like what you're saying, it just feels so silly. It feels so weird to be using a keyboard and trying to manage a game in VR in particular. So
it takes a long time, to get all that stuff hooked up.
Yeah. So but then trying to figure out the next interface. I mean, that's the $1 billion question. Who is going to nail that one down? Because after that, I feel like that's where the standard is going to be set to go from. What about?
And I mean, it'll come in small bits and pieces, and it probably won't all come from one person. It'll probably come from a series of staged development where not only do developers get more affluent with the systems, but users get more familiar with what works and what doesn't as well.
Yeah. Prio VR is the company you were mentioning. I saw them
Prio VR, yeah. That's the one.
Yeah, I saw them at GDC, a pretty big crowd surrounding them. I wish I had the time to go hit them up. But what does the Austin VR scene look like these days?
It's pretty early, actually. There's not a ton of stuff going on with VR. It's sort of all mixed in with all the other technologies, like 3D scanning and printing and, arcade manufacturing, an arcade cabinet. It's all over the place.
Yeah.
But it's starting to pick up, Once, I think that it goes to retail, I think that's when you'll start to see more Austin developers consider VR stuff. For sure.
Well, when you bring up VR to people, what sorts of reactions are you getting these days?
Oh, people are really interested in it.
Yeah.
People want to know more. And usually, when can I buy one? Which is always a good thing to hear.
I'm so looking forward to when my DK2 arrives, because I'm hitting the streets again. I'm holding back these days on showing off the DK1 just because it's just knowing what's coming next. It just it would be a disservice to the person putting it on right now, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm gonna go wild when the DK2 arrives and just showing it to everyone.
Yeah. It's going to be fun. I mean, I've spent so many hours with the DK1 now that I've gotten used to it. So I can't wait to see everything again.
What are you going to do with your DK1? Are you going to put it up as a in a box and have it as a collector's model to give it to your grandchildren?
Yeah, I had a couple other studio ones and ones that we used at demos, and I've sold all those. But I've kept my last one, and I will probably never sell it. I'll probably just hold on to it.
Yeah, it's a relic, I think. It's how many are there? What, 50, 70,000 out there in the world? Those numbers will go down eventually. I'm definitely going to put mine away somewhere and see where this leads. I mean, because this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it away. 10 years from now, I'm going to take it out one more time, and I'm going to compare it to the latest VR device. And I'm going to do a video review. So check out my YouTube channel 10 years from now, everybody. You're going to see a video review of me trying out DK1 comparison versus the next. What do you think it'll be like 10 years from now? Now we're going into, speculation town, but what do you think it'll look like 10 years from now?
I think that the optics, will just continue to improve. So the thing ultimately that I think you would want to see is where the lenses are beyond the field of view of your retinas, and then the pixelation diodes become so microscopic that your naked eye can't make out individual pixels anymore. That's if you have infinite depth in the virtual image, it would be indistinguishable from reality.
How crazy! I mean, that sounds insane. And just the thought of mimicking.
It's not that far off, though.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, they're pretty damn close to it now. Even with these plastic lenses and stuff, if they really, put a ton of money into making like a kick-ass system, you could easily achieve that.
Dear God, the Matrix is coming. It's coming. I saw a Reddit post once saying it was a comment that left my mind spinning for a while. How this guy was saying people were excited about DK1. I don't remember the context, but some guy came out saying, now imagine if all of this is just we're all just inside Oculus version number 10, and we're just replaying a movie. Of how this thing was born, and it's just in replay infinitely.
Yeah, man, it's we're all in the machine.
Yeah. Is that even a possibility to think about humans wanting to be inside this machine? I mean, just thinking about it, man, I just feel like it's science fiction.
It's inevitable.
Yeah.
I mean, in my old age, I can't imagine I'd want to do anything but, do VR stuff, especially if it's more dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's next frontier for VR? Is it actually hooking up to the human mind, to the brain, or is it?
I don't think it's too invasive. I think it's just recording real-time, data. For what I can see, that's going to be, the next major breakthrough.
Mm-hmm. So, in what way do you mean recording real-time data?
Basically, it's similar to how your Kinect camera or whatever will work. It's shooting rays out. It's using software to determine spatial relationships, and then it's recording that for transmission. So that would be like that would be the real world holodeck where you can actually, set up a series of scanners and cameras to record a 3D space in real time and then transmit that through the Oculus.
Can that get invasive also, do you think?
Well, yeah, but you got cameras everywhere already. It's no different.
That's
like the Batman thing.
Yeah.
You have that through all the cell phones he turned on. You could scan, the whole Gotham City or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's just that. I mean,
I'm sure the NSA already has it somewhere. Yeah, that technology somewhere. I'm sure they already know everything you say, everything. Yeah, just have the whole world mapped out three-dimensionally through sound waves. But going back to that question of plugging your brain into the machine with VR. If someone came up to you with the choice to remain human and be who you are right now, or have the ability to have infinite knowledge and well, near infinite knowledge, or the ability to, process calculations at, billions of times more than what you can do right now, would you do it? I mean, just to think you would be handed over this great power, but here's the thing, we know everything you think about.
Why not?
Yeah.
Look me up.
Yeah. I like your style. Yeah.
Well, did the Johnny Depp movie come out? It's
the Transcendence one, yeah.
So I thought that was the whole premise of that thing. Now you make me go see that movie, see how it ends.
I haven't seen it either. I'm.
Well, no, if that's the right decision or not. Johnny Depp, tell me if that's the right decision.
Yeah, why not plug me in? We want to.
It'd be cool. But I think that it'll ultimately transition to that anyway. People that if you have real time, telepresence and everything with VR, then people will. What's technically the difference? You're not in the space that you're perceiving yourself to be in, but your mind is in that space.
Mm-hmm.
You're not thinking about anything else that's going on in the room when you got those goggles on.
Yeah. The whole telepresence idea, the idea of real-time telepresence and having it available for millions of people to enjoy and experience, I think, to me, it brings to mind ideas of the singularity. How, if I want to know the truth about something that's happening somewhere, for example, Venezuela, I'll just plug into into a VR goggle that will show me a telepresence experience of what's happening in real time right there.
I'm every evening I turn on the news and I watch what's happening in the world. How much cooler would that be if everything that happened in the news was actually a Oculus simulation that you could experience recorded? Like the Pope, yesterday the Pope grabbed two kids from the crowd and he let them ride in the Pope-mobile and they drove around the square. How awesome would it be to have an Oculus camera on one of those kids' heads, and you can ride in the Pope-mobile, with all the people screaming and everything, and they're like, 2 kids rode the Pope-mobile. You're like, yeah, I was just there.
That would be insane. That would be amazing. And then your interface would be a giant globe that you would spin around with your hands, and you would pinpoint at your finger, and you zoom in into Italy, and then here's all the news stories coming out of Italy in real time right now, and then bam, you zoom.
That Facebook version 30,
Yeah.
Spin around.
That's what a crazy future we are walking right into. Holy shit! And
it's cool. I mean, it's interesting. Stuff changes so rapidly because you never know. And
the thing that I find it both exciting and scary is there's no precedent. There's nothing before us that we could go back and say, yes, that's what's we can learn from them. No, there's the Inca civilization, the Indus Valley civilization, the Romans, none of them had fucking computers in their pockets that they could tether themselves to this mainframe.
Yeah, we'll need a new calendar. We'll have like a BVR period. All history was just a reference to, but it was never actually experienced.
Your words are quite prophetic. I think I'm one of those people. I think it's just the birth of virtual reality is just as big as the birth of Jesus. Oh man, I said it. I think it's just I don't know. We're barely scratching the surface, and barely. And I don't think we've even seen the tip of the iceberg, or where this will end up. Especially when you put all the other technologies that are in conjunction, advancing forward, 3D printing, big data, machine automation, all these things put together as components of the same orchestra are going to make fabulous music in the future. But I think
so, yeah. But that's why I think like the big technology shift will be when you can record live events, because simulation is only going to be realistic up to a point. So people that are really interested in it will eventually, reach a glass ceiling with what can be done until they can record stuff.
What about the idea of, and going back to plugging into the machine and having superhuman abilities? Do you think we're gonna have backlash from the society as a whole because because we want to push so quickly into the future?
Well, I mean, it's like a Frankenstein syndrome that you will only be able to peak what the technology will allow. So.
Peek into. Can you explain that a little bit further?
You'll never be able to replace reality, so that would be the limit, of how invested people can get.
Huh. Bam. Mind blown. That's the sound of my mind being blown. Wow. That's crazy. Yeah, man. Man. You took me down the rabbit hole here. I quite thoroughly enjoyed it.
Sorry.
I've fallen victim to your rabbit hole. Dude, Neal, you've been amazing. Thanks so much for your time, man. I really appreciate you coming along and having all this. I don't even know what we just talked about, but it was awesome. I had a fun time.
I'm not sure. But hopefully there won't be much to edit.
No, this is you get EnterVR uncut, uncircumcised, all that good stuff. How can people stay in touch with you? How can people follow what you're up to, support what you're doing, all that good stuff?
They can reach me at my email, which is my name, Nellans, Nellans, at ghostmachinestudios.com. Or you can just go on the Ghost Machine website and send us probably an email somewhere through there. We just put up the website this week, so excuse us while we're still getting some new content and everything up there. But that'd probably be the best way. Or on the Oculus forums as Muglore, which is my pseudonym on there.
Muglore?
Yeah, Muglore.
Oh, cool. And do you have a Twitter by any chance?
Yes, our Twitter is Ghost Machine VR.
Very cool. So all this information will be up in my show notes. You can again check out Neal's work and check out the demo. Is the demo publicly available? I forgot to ask. I did get your email.
The demo is on SuperBike TT.com, and we'll be migrating that to GhostMachineStudios.com probably by the end of the week. So yes, it is up.
There you go. Perfect. So check out SuperBike TT and Homer's Great Adventure.
It's Adventure Spectacular.
Homer's Adventure Spectacular.
And iTunes.
Where on Google Play and iTunes, where you can shoot fire from a dog's butt and lasers from his mouth. I'm going straight to that game.
I think it's a free download.
Oh, even better.
I just gave that gem away.
We're seeing the birth of the next Flappy Bird. Once again, you've been a scholar and gentleman of virtual reality. Thanks again, Neal Nellans.
Hey, it's a lot. Good talking to you, Chris.
And bam, that's it.
Cool.
Cool.